All right. Last time I didn't do that. All right. I got a lot of
See you later.
I got a lot of people was saying about last time I did this. I didn't record it, so I expected a lot more people. But I also said in the email that as long as they're a member, they could view it on the website at any time. So maybe that's it. Well, people are starting to come on now, one by one. Right now, we got 13 people, I'm saying. So hello to everyone.
Hello, Johnny.
All right. Before I get started, anybody out there have anything they want to say? Anything important?
Yeah, why isn't my pull down motor pulling down?
Okay. I know you just had that, and a matter of fact, we just got a guy here, Larry. I don't think Larry's on, but he's from Rhode Island, and this is the third time that I'm sending him a motor that I repaired. And normally it don't happen. When I repair them, it's usually pretty good. So, of course, you know, everybody knows what a pull down motor looks like. What happened in this case was if you ever hit your pull down, first of all, everybody knows there's a recycle switch. You got the recycle switch. It's underneath where the boot is. It's underneath. You can't see it. So everybody should know that there's a recycle switch. And believe me, there's a lot of people that owned their cars for years and never knew it's there. But when you go to close your top, and if you ever get to the point where this motor just keeps on like humming, like it grabs it at the latch, and then you could hear it spinning, but nothing happens. On this case here, like I said, this was 3 times fixing it for this guy. Inside, you have the motor, which is here, right? And then on the top of this is a thread, and that thread goes in this housing right here. I don't have the front of it on, but it goes in the housing like this. And when it goes in, then there's this plastic gear that has teeth on it. And when it's in there like so, the gear spins, and that's what spins, and it makes your latch go up and down. In this case, when he hit the button underneath, it just spun. And it wasn't doing anything going up or down. Now, if you smash it with a hammer a little bit, yes, you can get it to go. But what happened on this case, every time the fellas send it back to me, I checked it out. I did it. I said, this thing works. I took it apart. I said, it's fine. So now it's the second time. So now I studied the whole thing. There's teeth, if you can see the teeth. And if I spin it around, it's going to look fine. But under like a magnifying glass, like I got here, there's 2 teeth that the middle of the teeth was actually, it looked like it was bent and not eaten away. Most of the time, these get like, should I say, grinded down. And when it gets grinded down, there's nothing to bite on it, and that's why it spins. In this case, there was 2 teeth that were kind of like bent. And whenever that motor pulled down, it caught at that one or two teeth, and that's it. It would never move again. So that's something, you have to look at these really well before you actually install them. So it teaches me a good lesson. But anyway, that is part of your pull down motor problem, is this little gear. And the second thing is the housing itself. The housing itself, what happens, gets cracked. Most of the time it cracks right at the back. So I'm going to get one. All right, who's playing music?
I am.
Shut it off.
Alexa, stop playing.
Okay.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. Check your Wi-Fi network connection by going to settings.
Have him unmute.
All right, I'm back. This is the way a motor is supposed to look with the front of it. And then it snaps in like so. So now that's everything except for the latch on the top. What happens right about here, it gets a fine crack. And then once that cracks, when this spins, the housing spreads apart. And when it spreads apart, the gear that's supposed to be touching that piece, it spreads apart. Now it ain't touching when it turns. So that's another reason why it stops pulling down. So you have the housing cracks, the gears wear out, and then you have, of course, the switch, which is a critical part. Okay, so there's a couple of things that could go wrong with them. Now, first of all, to eliminate the cracking and the gear, that would mean to take your motor apart and grease it. Who's going to do that? Nobody, until it breaks. Then you spend a couple $100 to fix it. But if you were to take it apart and grease it, you will probably never, ever have a problem with your pull down motor. But nobody's going to do that. And I can't blame you. Okay, so that is the reason. So the motor itself very rarely goes bad. The only time I saw one really bad is car was, I think it was in a junkyard or whatever, but it got rain in it and then water got in it and I couldn't even pull it out. So you could pull this out. It's magnetic in there. So when we rebuilt them, we take them apart, we pull this out, we sand all this down, we clean it inside. The part here is where the brushes hit and we clean that up. So, but most of the time, like I said, this doesn't go bad. I never seen one go bad except when it got rained in it, rain on it, in it, whatever. But when the pull downs go bad, it's always the housing or the gear or the switch.
If you wanted to take that apart and pack it, what kind of grease would you use?
I've been using a silicone grease now. A lithium grease, they say, is okay. But I like the silicone for some reason. It's a clear silicone. And I get, you know what? I don't know what greases are actually better from one grease to another. You just go by what they tell you. So I don't know. I like the silicone grease. It seems to be working, you know, good for me so far. Now, on the other hand, you have, this is the original motor, right? This is the original one that came with all the cars every year, except the housing was clear like this one. So this housing here is redone, and I think it's redone with the plastics, you know, recycled. And this one too, they recycled the clear one too. I don't know if they last. I don't think they last as long as the other ones did. I used to have, as you know, I was a paper hanger by trade, and we used to get buckets of paste, 5-gallon buckets, and they were recycled buckets. We had the handle, as you're carrying it, the handle would just crumble in your hand from the recycle. And sometimes the buckets, if you hit it a certain way, they crack. So recycled plastic, I don't think is any good, but maybe over the years, it's getting better and better. But the other thing I wanted to show you is if you go to buy a motor on today on Amazon or wherever you go, you're going to get a motor that looks like this. It's square in the back. Some are silver, some are black. Here's the silver one. So
I have,
if you're going to,
there's a thing that's not a light bulb, but it's got 3.
Yeah, this is probably that. Use it just so.
all right, we mooted them. Okay, they're your two motors. You can see one is flat on the side, one is round. The round one is the better motor. I think they last longer. They still break, but I think they last longer. And you got a better chance of getting the housing to fit it, because these motors, you can't get a housing. I don't know how. I tried. I can't see why you can't buy the housing, but I think they got a monopoly on it, whatever. But what happens is these break faster. And I'll give you, for instance, so you probably can't see it, but again, right in here where the other ones do, it's cracked. And I don't think you could see it, but it's cracked there. Now, check this out. See it? The whole thing cracked. And then it'll look like this. See, there's no bottom at all. The whole bottom falls right out, cracks right off. So then I got a third one here that doesn't seem to be cracked yet. But this is sometimes the only choice you have, is to get one of these. So this is probably what we have to go with. But in any case, what I try to do is when somebody sends me one, I try to make sure we get them around one. Now the other part is the switches. This one, if you look at the back here, this is for every year but 93. This one is a 93 switch. If you could look with a plug, you can see the plugs are different. So one of the problems now is with China and all our things that's going on is these, first of all, these switches for the other year cars, you can't get it all. The ones for the 93, you could have got them up until about maybe 6 months ago. Now, if you go on eBay or any place, Amazon, they're discontinued. And if you did happen to find it, you're not going to find it with the lever attached. It would be for the trunk pull down motor, which looks like that. It's the same thing, right? This is a brand new one and has the lever. But what you have to do is remove the lever off of this one and put it onto this one. And that's how we get around it. The switches, because you can't get them anymore, now are becoming a nuisance and expensive. But I think it's only a matter of time until they become available again. The same thing with our shocks for all the years except for 93. You can't get rear shocks anymore, but I'm sure they're going to come back. And there's a couple of, they said calibers you couldn't get, but now you can get the calibers. So it's only a matter of time. And it happens a lot in the car industry where, and it's not only our car, all of a sudden they'll stop making something or you can't find it. And then all of a sudden, boom, there it goes again. So it's just a matter of time before things start coming back. Before we go into the front header motors, any questions on the rear? Any questions on these?
Johnny, this isn't so much a question about the motor. I'm just curious, is there a way you can manually, get that back roof to lock?
Okay, all right, this is what some people have done. On this piece, there's a screw in the back. And this screw is a ground screw where when the wires come up, there's a ground wire, and then there's the wire that plugs into the switch. If you didn't want to, what you can do by eliminating this ground wire, it won't pull it down by itself. So what you do is when you close the latch, you hit the recycle button under the boot, and then it'll pull it down. And then you don't have to wait for that click, because that click shuts the juice off. And if you're pull down motors in a trunk or the top, you got to hear it click either on the up position or the down position. If you do not hear that click, you're going to have a dead battery in a matter of a day and a half or whatever. It's all for how good your battery is. So if a lot of people, not a lot, but some people are making it that they don't connect the ground wire, so then they use the button underneath to pull their top down. And then when it pulls it down, they just let go of the button. Whether it clicks or not, it doesn't matter, because you're not sending any juice here, because it works on a ground system. So, but if the motor and the latch and the gear inside is not working, then there's no other way to pull that top down. Now, we had one car come in, and it got, the jealousy windows that, you turn the thing. This guy rigged up a thing through the motor. He drilled a hole right through this. So when it latches, then he goes in the trunk and he turns it, and it pulled the motor down. I thought that was pretty ingenious, but all the parts that were, that he made, it was like he had to spend a week on it. It was a lot of them. But like I said, your motor and the gears, no matter how you do it, it still has to work. The gear has to work. Like I said, there's people that, there's a lot of things you can do to you know, you drill a hole in that boot weld, you could pull it down that way. You know, there's all kind of ways you could rig it up. But, I mean, do you really want to do that? You know, do you want to, whatever you do, it's not going to be convenient, especially if you're driving and let's say you get caught in the rain. Now me, you know, because I do it so much, and even my wife can do it because she's around cars all the time. If you're driving in the rain, you pull over, you lift up, you hit the button, you push it down, and you get in the car, and as you're driving away, you hear the motor go click. So you know you got the click in the back. So it's that fast. If you do it any other way, if you don't have it the right way, then you're gonna have to stand there and do what you got to do to pull it down, to hit the button underneath, and so on and so forth. So, and of course, if you're looking for points or trophies at a car show, that's gonna knock something off. So, you know,
Do you know offhand which fuse that is? To pull
on
that-
the 93, it's a maxi fuse and it does both the front and the rear.
Where is it?
Next to the battery. It's in the book and it's
Okay.
next to the battery.
Okay.
In all other year cars, it is the circuit breaker fuse under the ashtray, and you should have some are 3, some are 4 circuit breakers on the right-hand side, and it's usually the bottom one towards the back of the car.
Now you say that's for both pull downs, for the trunk and the hood?
Yeah,
And
for
the
the-
roof?
for the
and
trunk
And the front of the roof?
yeah, the front and rear pull downs on the same fuse.
Okay,
Which
so
is
if
a
your
maxi
front was
fuse.
working, it's not your fuse. If
If
the
what?
front pull down, if the front pull down's working, it's not your fuse.
At the front, yeah, you're right, correct, right, correct.
You mean the front pull down, the top pull down?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
front top pull downs.
So if my motor's not working on the rear or in the trunk or the rear, and I hooked a voltmeter up to it and I'm not getting power there, that means the motor went bad, right? Or
Well,
wrong?
wait a minute. You're saying your trunk and your convertible top rear is not working?
My trunk has not been working since I got the car about 6 months ago. The
Okay.
rear down motor was working, but I kept hearing that whir, you know, that's that humming, the sound,
Right.
a click, little click, not a big click,
That's
Right.
little click.
Well,
And
the
then
first thing you should do is like Denny said, if you hit the button to open up the front, if that works, then your fuse is good.
The fuse is good then, it works.
Okay, then disconnect it from the switch here.
I did that.
And then just get a test light, and there's 4 prongs. One of them has got a light. And if it doesn't light, then you could have a wiring problem. All right, so, but one of them's got a light. On the harness side, not this side.
Right.
Pull it out, get a test light, and then just touch each prong. And one of them should light. And then if it does, then it's in here, why it's not working. If it doesn't light, then you got to find out why. It's a wiring problem somewhere.
If it doesn't light, if it does light, it's the motor.
If it does light, it's the motor, something with this. And a lot of times, if you touch the motor, you can feel this motor getting hot. When this doesn't work up and down, this will still get juice.
Okay,
And that's why you get a dead battery, because it's still throwing juice to the motor here. Even though it's not spinning, it's just throwing the juice.
all
You know.
right, so if I'm not getting a dead battery, because I don't drive the car every day,
Right.
if I'm not getting a dead battery, then probably the
Well,
motor?
If you're not getting a dead battery, then that's telling me, see, if you drove your car every day, then you won't get a dead battery because it's not sitting long enough to drain the battery.
I drive it maybe once, twice a week, you know?
Okay, so, and your motor's not working.
Correct.
Okay, so then it's telling me then you might not be getting power to this at all.
Yeah, because when I
Yeah.
hooked the meter up, it didn't show anything.
Right, right. So try that again
Okay,
and then, and
Switch
then I'll
out.
tell you, and then I'll tell you what, after, just give me a buzz and I'll try to walk you through a little more one-on-one.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but that's probably it there.
Another
Thank-
question, Johnny.
Go
I've
ahead.
got a 93 and I am unable to lock the rear roof, and my power antenna is also not working. Is that just coincidental, or are those two somehow linked together?
Well, again, if you would unplug the power antenna and then turn your radio on, you should get juice out of one of them prongs. Now you're on a 93, the power antenna fuse is in the trunk area. So you could check them. I think there's 3 or 4 fuses, or no, there might be more than that. But the fuse is where the power antenna is, where that fuse box is. So that would be, just check there, see if the fuse is gone.
So the antenna is not on the same fuse as that rear motor.
No, that's definitely separate. So,
John?
yeah,
One comment. If it runs for long enough, it gets hot and that can soften the plastic housing. So then you get problems with the housing. Secondly,
yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah, right.
sir, also, I am almost deaf, but I can put my fingertips on the trunk lid and tell if either one of them is spinning. I feel a little vibration.
Okay,
So that's
um,
another way to check.
okay. So yeah, if it's spinning, if you could hear, yes, you could hear it spinning no matter what. Even your antenna, I'm sure somebody had problems. When that antenna mass breaks, then the gear inside just keeps on spinning. And a lot of people will get their batteries from a power antenna. So you just unplug it and you'll be all right. Yeah, I don't know. They are a nuisance, and it seems to be Alante's #1 problem. But if you get it and it's maintenance and you're careful with it, like another thing is I saw people slam their roof. That's a no-no.
Mhm.
That will break the housing, especially in this new plastic that's coming out. And I don't know if I'm right about it, but I really think this recycled plastic ain't as strong as it used to be.
Anyway, you can stiffen that up.
Well, you know what? There was a guy on the internet for Buick, I think it was, for their trunk pull downs. And he showed you where he epoxied a lot of things, put a metal baller. I mean, yeah, I guess there is. It's how much you want to get involved doing it. I'll give you for instance, there's a fella right now that's buying from me. I have almost a new one, the sill plate that runs on each side of our car. And them things are very brittle. And if you're like me, when you get out of the car, sometimes you push your hand on it to get out of the car. And when you do, you could hear, little cracking sound. So I always thought, but I never did it, even on my cars. And I'm going to give him a pointer. Once he receives it, turn it upside down, or take it out of your own cars, turn it upside down and get some kind of liquid resin and just pour it in there to make it stronger. I'm sure there's so many things to do to make things stronger. It's just who
You got
does it?
30-year-old plastic there. and it
Yeah,
doesn't hold up
right.
too well.
Right. And I always said, boy, if they made something like a spray that you could spray on plastic so it becomes more pliable. There's no such thing, but people say if you keep it cleaned and lubricated and stuff, it will. So I don't know. All right, any more with this?
One more. Will a 1990 motor fit the 93?
Oh, well, 87 to 93s are all the same. Now, 87 has a little different on this latch. If you noticed, if you could see, this is like a beak right here,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a bird's beak. The 87 did not have that. But it still works, but this works much better.
Okay.
So to answer your question, 87 to 93 are all the same, except
The switch.
the switch. The switch is different, and same for the trunk or the latch. 93, this switch is in the trunk too. And these switches are also for Lincoln Continentals, Camaros, you know, they're in a lot of cars. And if you notice, Cadillac, if anybody has late model Cadillacs, they did away with the pull down motor because they knew it became a nuisance, and they were tired of fixing pull down motors. So they just did away with it. And now today, everything's a button now, right? So you don't even touch your trunk.
Yeah, Cadillac actually started in the 60s with pull downs. I never could figure out why.
Because it just made it cool. You know, you're buying an expensive car and like high class, like, hey, watch this, and it pulls itself down. And then people getting their fingers caught in it, you know, the whole bit. All right, now, we also have, these are the front pull down motors. These could be a nuisance too. To keep these lasting for a long time, most of the people that go through these, it's always the passenger side one always goes first. And the reason why that is because when you lift the top up, that window should be down at least 2 inches. So the roof doesn't interfere with the window. And if you notice, all your cars today, when you go to close the door, the windows go down and then they go back up again. Especially like anybody have an XLR, it does it too. The windows come down, the top goes up, and the windows go back up again. All right, same thing with the Alante. When you're putting your top up, okay, most of the time your driver's side door is going to be open because you're standing there. The passenger side, if somebody's there, make them open up the door. If not, you got to lower your window at least 2 inches. And if you don't, you're going to get this. See the way this is going back and forth? Because there's a brass gear inside that goes bad, and it's a very expensive gear and very difficult to rebuild too. So, and then not only will it move back and forth, sometimes it'll pull in and out. And then when they get real bad, it just come completely out. So if you were to, let me see if this works. This is what you're going to get. All right. Can you hear that? And see that it's moving?
Yes.
All right. Now, by right, if this was a good motor, it would stop. As soon as it goes around, it'll stop. But because the gear is bad inside, that's what you get. So a lot of times you would hear that. And if you did hear that, then it's time for a rebuild on a motor. if the motors don't work, if you hit the button and one spins and one don't, right, that could just be a relay. And on 93s, the relays is up where the batteries are. And there's 3 relays here. Well, there's a bunch of them, I'm sorry. But there's 3 tall ones. The 2 end ones, one each side, one is for the left, one's for the right. And the one in the middle is for the windshield washers. Nobody uses them. They only dirty your car. So what you would do is you would take the middle one out and put it in either the left or the right side and see if you get your motors to start spinning. After a couple turns, it's a timer relay, and it's got to catch up with each other. In the non-93 cars, the relays are behind the driver's seat, that carpeted panel you got to pull out, which is difficult, the way they have it. And you'll see there's 2 relays here, and they tape them all up. So you have to cut the black tape and then, just switch them. And if you switch them and the other side starts working, the other side don't, then you need a relay, a timer relay. And you let me know. We have a few there. That's another thing that's very hard to get.
Yeah,
Well-
are you going to talk about the official Cadillac adjustment tool for the top pull down?
The adjustment tool. Now, what is that?
It's in the technical service bulletin,
Um,
a ball peen hammer.
oh. Well, I will tell you one time, and I had a car one time that every time you put the top down, it would hit the latch. And of course, if it hits the latch, it's going to spark. Now, let you know, that's common. That's okay, because it works on a ground system. So, if it just touches a little bit, it's going to spark. And if it does, it's not hurting anything. The thing that does hurt, though, if you put the top down and that J hook hits that and your motor goes, that means you're going to have a dead battery, because it just got it out of, that motor's got to be either all the way up or all the way down. So if you see that motor go, just hit your recycle button. And if it goes down and it stays there, let it stay there. When you lift your top up, it's going to come up by itself. So just make sure of that. But what Paget was saying is it would hit all the time. I couldn't get it to go down. So you look at your motor and you look at the washers behind it. Some people put 5, 6, 7, 8 washers to build the motor out. In other words, your latch, right, is up against the firewall, which is, well, not firewall, but whatever. So now when a J hook comes down, it misses it. It's like this. So what they do is they add washers behind the bracket here to make it tilt like that. So now the J hook goes in here. Well, that's all well and fine. But when you put your top down, the J hook goes, now it won't pass this. So then you got to take the washers out that they put, because what happens is your top over the years is shrinking and it's pulling all different which ways. And that's probably, that's the reason why it's hitting. And because the J hook, like when the car was new, the J hook was here, right? Now it's shrinking, the J hook's there. So that's the problem. So that's why they're bending it to make it. So what you got to do now, this one car came in and I took all the washers out and it was still hitting. I couldn't get the roof down. I said, what the hell is this? So, what Paget just said, somebody mentioned something, and you could have mentioned this a while ago, I don't know. But somebody mentioned something about beating it up with a hammer. It's in the book. So I saw it and he's right. You get a block of wood, bang on the back of it. I said, you know what? This is probably what I got to do. I got a block of wood. I banged it in the back. So now instead of this sitting here, it moved it that way
Yeah.
because I banged on it and it worked like a charm.
Yeah,
But-
it's in 91 technical service bulletin book,
Yeah.
the old
So-
one.
So it's unbelievable.
Can you also adjust the J hook, the little screw up there?
Yeah, now the J hook has in 87 and I think 88 does not have any little set screw behind it. But it does have a spring where it's supposed to, if you lift it, it's supposed to spring back.
Mhm.
It does have a spring that it's supposed to spring back. A lot of the springs are breaking. So you got to try to get a new spring in there. Or when you bring your top down, you just got to get your finger and move the J hook so it catches.
Hey, John,
Yeah,
you said the latch would go up by itself?
yeah. In other words, let's say for instance, you go to put your top down and it hits it and you see your motor go and it stopped. Now, if you hit the recycle button, it's going to pull it down. It's going to click. Now you're good. It could stay that way. But when you lift your top up, it's going to come up all by itself. It's supposed to.
Mine never has. I always have to send it up manually.
Okay, now there's two reason. One is that little thing here.
Mhm.
The ground wire is if your ground wire is connected. And second is, and I didn't even use this, I made this harness to work pull down motors. Where is it? Okay, if you lift your top up, lock it in place, and you have your wheel well that has the hole in there. And another thing there's holes on each side. Them holes are there to have water get in the car. The car was designed to get water in it. So then they go out the holes. So whenever you lift that top out of the way, always check your holes. Leaves could get in there. There's pieces of rubber that's in the boot well that will unsticky itself and cover up the hole. And if it does, and you're caught in the rain, or you go to a car wash, which you shouldn't, it will fill up with water. If you hit your brake, that water is going to go right down the front of your car, right down the carpet, and go all under your seat. So always make sure them holes are clear. And you can get a hanger and make sure it's clear, stick it through.
And
then
where are those holes?
when you lift up the back of your roof,
Yeah,
where that big wheel well is, it's not really a wheel well, but it's like a valley on each side.
okay, yeah.
Right, look down there, you'll see a round hole. Just make sure they're clear all the time. All right, going back, Tunes, you still there? There you go. All right. If this ground wire isn't connected to the motor, it needs to be, that's what makes it go up and down. But the second thing is, I lost it again. Here it goes. Like I was saying, underneath where the wheel well is, where them holes are, if you look under there, you're gonna see a button like this. Wait a minute. You're gonna see a button like this. Now, this one doesn't press down because I made it. Now, this button reminds you of the older cars, when you open up the door and you press the button to turn the light on and off in your dome.
Yeah.
That's the button you're looking for, right? But it's upside down. It's like that, right? No, I'm sorry. The button is up like that, and at the bottom of it, there's two little tiny wires with a piece of plastic coming down, and the wires got to be plugged in on each side. If one of them wires are off, your motor is not going to come back up. Then you have to do it manually. So the two reasons are the ground wire on the motor, right? And this button, I forget what it's called, but this button has two wires at the bottom. And you look and see if they're there, if they're plugged in. And then that motor should rise as soon as you lift your top up, because what it's doing, see, when your top is down, it pushes this down. And then as soon as you lift your top up, it goes away from this. And then this comes up and then it circles the ground.
Okay, I'll check for that one.
Okay, check that out.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Anybody else with any other questions? I know it's, they are a nuisance, but yeah, you don't want to slam them. You want to keep them greased. You want to adjust them properly. And it does take time. There's sometimes I do a pull down motor, and Ross Longo just came on and he'll vouch. Sometimes you do a pull down motor, a guy will come in, bing, bang, boom, see you later. Other times I'm there for hours where something is not working, it's not clicking, it's not going up. I had one with a motor where it's 3 bolts, it's 2 13 millimeters. Where's the latch? On the side here, where it goes in over here, it's 2 13s. And then right at the bottom over here, it's a 10. I had it where the motor, after I fixed it, the motor's not working. I back off this number 10 and it works like a charm. If I tighten it up, it stops working. But no wires were jammed. And still to this day, I still can't figure it out. But he was happy. So what I did was I took it out, the bolt. I put a rubber washer behind it, just not to push it in further. And he was good to go. And I never heard from him again, except for other things. So
Yeah, there's also Loctite Blue.
the what?
Loctite Blue. I'd never use red, but blue will hold it in place.
Oh, okay. But like I said, some things are just wild, It's sometimes you just don't know, you've been doing it for a long time and then all of a sudden, boom, you run into a little problem, but then right now, where are you at, a standstill with yours?
Who, me?
Yeah. Or did you get it working yet?
No, I'm at a standstill.
All right, now, all right, let's try to diagnose it. What's it doing? What's it not doing?
It latches,
Right?
but it doesn't pull down. It doesn't recycle. It doesn't
Okay,
do
so
anything
it
electric.
latches, and then if you go to pull it, it's latched, right?
Yeah, right,
Okay, but it doesn't move down.
right. It doesn't do anything that will cause, that needs electricity.
Okay, now if you hit the recycle button underneath, does it pull it?
Nope, nothing.
Nothing. All right, so right off the bat, that's telling me you probably need a switch. It could be the switch is bad, but
Now to verify that, I should check and see if I got light on any of those wires.
yeah, first thing to do is unplug the switch. Where'd you go? Oh,
I did that.
unplug the switch, get a test light and see if you get a light on one of them prongs.
I did that, but I didn't get a light, but I wasn't sure I was grounded in a good spot.
All right, so let's do that first. Make sure you're grounded. Touch something else. I always touch the battery to make sure I'm grounded right.
Yeah, but my,
Because the battery's right there.
oh yeah, the battery is right there. So,
Yeah, battery's right there. So touch the battery, make sure your test light's working, and then just,
yeah, okay.
and then go from there. If you got power there and you don't have, and it's not going up or down, 9 times out of 10, you know, you need one of these,
Mhm.
you know, so,
Yeah,
Okay.
but I find it easier to pull the connector at the pull down motor than try to get behind the switch. And that tells me if the motor's getting power.
pull the connector.
That's the easy one to reach when with the top out of the way.
Well, you unplug it. I unplug it.
Yeah, and you've got 3 connectors. One should be hot. And depending on which way you push the button, one of the other 2 should go to ground.
Oh, another thing is there, you can't overlook this. You know, the recycle button,
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes they'll get bad. So take it out, spray it, degrease it. And when you touch them, that's supposed to, you know, go real nice and soft back and forth. If it gets a little stiff, that means it's dirt in there or
On the
something.
rocker, on the rocker.
On the
for
rocker, yes.
recycle.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, it's a little complicated. I never really got into really detail. Like at rocker switch, it's got 4. I think Paget knows that. He's pretty up on it. It's got 4 connectors. I mean, why is there 4 connectors? But I'm sure it makes sense, right, Paget?
Yeah, well, that's because you've got 1 for up, 1 for down, 1 for power, and 1 for ground. That's
Yeah.
4.
There you go. You know, it just seems like it's too much. But
Oh, it is, but it's a Cadillac.
yeah, right. Right.
Buick didn't bother with motors,
Right.
and their tonneau was metal, so they didn't have to worry about a plastic tonneau breaking.
Right.
Minor things.
And the a lot of people say, you know, why do they have plastic? Why this? Why that? You know, it's hard. Somebody told me the reason of the plastic was because if it's made out of metal and there's a malfunction, it could catch fire. That's what somebody said. That's what I heard. The other thing is, you know, let's face it, our whole convertible top system, I think the good thing about it and why they did it was they gave us a real back window, which is a plus. All the Mercedes had plastic back windows, and they
Not
lasted.
quite. My SLK has a glass window, but
Oh,
it's
wait,
retractable.
What year? What year?
I have a 2000 and a
Okay, you're in a 2000. I'm talking in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, damn, okay, but it's
Yeah,
hard to
so in
find
the
it.
80s, 1987, I think the Alante was, you know, like the real first real glass window. There might have been
Yeah,
other
Buick
cars with
didn't
it.
get a convertible till 90.
Right. So they gave you a real glass window, which was a plus, and that was their way to make it work. But you know what? If you get it working right and it's connected and it's greased and it's aligned right and you get it perfect, it should last you a long time.
Yeah, I took a lot of photos with my cell phone because I could get right down on the mechanism. And then
Right,
the
right.
J-hook was dead centered.
Right. And I guess you kind of look at it as, that's why we like these cars, because we like tinkering, I guess. See, and I always said, if you don't like tinkering, then you shouldn't have any old car. Go lease a car, you know. But
What amazes me is people who will buy a 30-year-old car and not buy the shop manual.
Well, I got a guy right now, used to call me all the time, and I'm going, listen. You're a member. I don't mind talking to you all the time, but you still need a shop manual. Now, I need for you to buy one. And he says, all right. So I gave him his credit card, so I gotta send him a shop manual down.
You're right, though. I kicked myself in the ass for giving you that manual before I left.
Well, I'll get you another one. Well,
Well, did you-
I thought you had a second one. You didn't?
No. Did you ever find me that module for underneath my seat?
Not yet, but I did ask Hussey about it. And he says, he'll try to dig one up for you,
Okay.
you know, because I don't have any here. I do have a couple 93s out there, but I don't know what we're doing with them yet, but we got to get to them.
You're one of the few people I'd trust to sell a 93.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got a Pearl Flax one for sale. All ready to go, all maintenance up. All right, in the meantime, if there's any other Zoom meeting you would like me to touch on, you know, let me know. Send me an email, whatever.
Yeah, power windows.
Power window, yeah, that's
The
a good one.
switches in the driver's door. I've been through 3 of them, I think, so far.
I have a
Right,
problem with the switch on my passenger door.
right.
They get
The, the, I will touch on it a little bit. The problem that I'm seeing is some of these people are repairing them and they're drilling holes and putting these little tiny screws in.
Yeah.
I don't like it because if you look around the screw, they're cracking. And the
Mhm.
housing, the top housing is starting to crack all around. And once the housing goes, the top of the housing, you just lost the switch. That's the most important part. You know, so I do agree with gluing it.
Yeah,
But
there's only one way to install a screw in something like that. And it is one, very carefully drill a pilot hole. And secondly, heat the screw. So it actually melts the plastic.
melts
and
into it.
drills
But
in
I
right
think,
back.
I think what happens is from always pressing it, you're pushing it together. And if the screw's there, you're pushing it and then
Yeah.
it's cracking around the screw. So I don't think the screw is a good chance, a good way to fix them. I usually put some nice super glue on it,
Mhm.
but I
Yeah.
always take them apart. The contacts inside, you clean all the contacts that are in the switch. Then you clean the contacts that fall out. Then you make sure, the buttons, you press the back of them that everything works on the top of the switch.
Yeah.
Then, of course, we have a guy that relights them because some of your lights are out.
Leave them out.
And you could leave them out. Because you know what's crazy about that is
But then how-
them lights light up all the time. So
Mhm.
during the day, a nice summer day, you touch that switch, it's hot. Everybody says, oh, I think something's wrong with my switch. No, that's because it's lit up. You don't
Mhm.
see it in the day, but they never put a shut off for it.
And who looks down there to turn the switches anyway?
Well, you're right. You're right. Because if you're driving your car all the time, you know where everything is. But let's face it, almost every car, every switch is lit up. You know,
The
even in
worst
newer
ones
cars.
I've ever seen were Italian cars. The headlight switch always gets hot.
Right, right. They do curse out the Europeans a lot, whether it be in the Jaguars or even the Alantes, you know, the Italians, this and that and this. But I don't know, but look at the eighties American cars. I think they were the worst.
Yeah, all
Uh,
you need to do with an E-Type was put a Delco alternator in it.
Right, right.
Just
Um,
reverse the diodes.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
What did we just do with an alternator? Remember a guy's car, something happened?
And it wasn't, the alternator was good, but it wasn't.
No,
one?
no, the car wasn't working properly. And somebody said, change the alternator. Was the 87. Why?
Oh, was it the dash? Dash wasn't lighting up? There was a few
Oh,
things on
yeah,
the
yeah,
dash?
yeah, here it goes. The 87, as you're driving, right? Now, we do know this. If you have bad injectors in every car but a 93, you're driving a car, your speedometer might go to 40 to 80, back to 60, whatever. And that has something to do with the injectors, though I don't know why, but once you change the injectors, the speedometer works perfectly.
Mhm.
Just this 87, we had it where you were driving and the car would go to 60 and stay there. And I put in
John?
different dashes. I put in a bunch of things. And a guy told me that was here, he said, John, change the alternator. He goes, we had a car in the 60s and I told the guy it wasn't running right. Change the alternator. Even though you test it, it's charging, the lights are fine, everything's fine. I changed the alternator in the car and never had that problem.
Yeah. Yeah,
Batteries cars
APIs
are-
are sensitive.
Charging systems can screw up a lot of things that
Right.
are hard to figure out.
Right.
I had the same thing on my Ultra Classic, my Harley. I ended up, nobody could figure out what was wrong with it. I ended up taking it to this guy in Bristol, and he knew right away. He said, "Your problem is your alternator, your
Mhm.
charging system." And he fixed. He says, "I can't even look for the problem that you're having until I fix that problem."
Yeah.
So he ended up doing that, and it was perfect after that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, do you realize that the Elante is one of the last cars to have a distributor?